Nobody asked for her opinion. She gave it anyway. The neighbor 3 doors down, the mother-in-law, the woman at the pharmacy who overheard a conversation she had no business hearing, they all said the same thing, in different words, with the same certainty. Get rid of the dog before the baby comes. A 90-pound German Shepherd has no place in a house with a newborn. And Sarah listened to every single one of them. She just didn't agree. His name was Bruno, and on the night her daughter came home for the first time, Bruno did something that left every single one of those people completely speechless. Sarah had adopted Bruno 3 years before her daughter was born. She had been 26, newly single, and living alone in a house that was too quiet in a way that had nothing to do with noise. A coworker had mentioned a rescue organization. Sarah had gone on a Saturday morning thinking she would look. She had come home 6 hours later with a 7-month-old German Shepherd, who immediately climbed onto her couch and fell asleep like he owned it, which it turned out he did. For 3 years, Bruno was her entire world. He learned her schedule before she had fully learned it herself. He knew when she was sick before she felt it coming. He once sat outside the bathroom door for 40 minutes during a particularly bad evening and didn't move until she opened it. He was 92 pounds of quiet, unwavering presence, and Sarah had stopped imagining life without him so long ago that the thought no longer even occurred to her. He was not a pet. He was a fact of her life, as constant and reliable as anything she had ever known. Then she found out she was pregnant. The opinions arrived before the morning sickness did. Her mother called from 2 states away to say that German Shepherds were unpredictable around infants and that the statistics were clear, though she could not produce any statistics when asked. Her neighbor Linda stopped her in the driveway to share a story she had read online about a dog and a baby. A story that turned out to be 12 years old and involved a completely different breed. Her coworker, Jason, who had never owned a dog in his life, sent her 3 articles in a single week, each one more alarming than the last. Sarah read all of them. She thanked everyone, and then she watched Bruno. Because Bruno, the moment her belly began to show, had already started to change. He stopped jumping up to greet her at the door, not because anyone told him to, just because he seemed to understand without explanation that something was different now, and that different required care. He started sleeping closer to her side of the bed. He followed her up the stairs every single night and waited at the top every single morning. He did all of this without being asked, without being trained, without anyone saying a single word. Sarah noticed. Nobody else wanted to. I see you're still here but haven't subscribed yet. Honestly, that breaks my heart a little. Hit that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what comes next. Her daughter was born on Wednesday in September. They named her Lily. She weighed 6 pounds and 14 ounces and had her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness, which became apparent within the first 48 hours. When they brought her home on a Friday afternoon, Bruno was waiting at the door. Sarah's mother, who had flown in for the first 2 weeks, took a step back. Her hand went to her chest. Bruno did not bark. He did not jump. He walked to the car seat that Sarah had set on the floor, lowered his nose to within an inch of Lily's face, and held it there for a long moment. Then he sat down. He looked up at Sarah. Then he looked back at Lily. Sarah's mother didn't say anything for the rest of that afternoon. The weeks that followed were not what anyone had predicted. Not the neighbor, not the mother-in-law, not Jason with his 3 articles. Bruno moved through those early weeks like he had been preparing for them for 3 years. He learned Lily's sounds faster than Sarah did. He could tell the difference between the cry that meant hunger and the one that meant discomfort before either parent had figured it out. He would walk to the nursery door and stand there, ears forward, looking back at them when the second kind started. He never needed to be called. He was already there. At 2 months, Lily had a bad night, a fever that wouldn't break, a cry that didn't sound right, a house that felt too small and too large at the same time. Sarah sat on the nursery floor at 2:23 in the morning with Lily against her chest, waiting for the doctor to call back. Bruno lay down beside her, pressed his warm side against her leg, and stayed there without moving for 2 hours and 11 minutes. He didn't sleep, he just stayed, the way he had always stayed, because that was who he was and had always been. The fever broke just before 5 a.m. Bruno was still there when the sun came up. Sarah looked at him in the early morning light, his eyes still open, still watching Lily's face, and she thought about all the people who had told her to give him away. She did not call any of them. This is the kind of love that deserves to be seen. If this story is reaching you, you already know why. The moment that shocked everyone happened 4 months later. It was 3:41 in the morning. Sarah was asleep for the first time in what felt like weeks when Bruno began barking, short, sharp, urgent, the kind of sound he had never once made in 3 years of living in that house. She was in the hallway before she was fully awake. Bruno was at Lily's door, pawing at it, his whole body rigid with something she had never seen in him before. She pushed the door open. Lily was tangled in her sleep sack, her small face pale, her breathing shallow and labored. One of the fabric panels had twisted and folded in a way that was pressing against her chest, restricting the movement she needed. She wasn't in immediate danger, but she would have been. Sarah had her free in seconds, held her until the color came back, sat on the floor of the nursery for a long time after, Lily against her chest, Bruno's head in her lap, the house quiet around all 3 of them. The next morning she called her mother, not to say "I told you so," just to tell her what had happened. Her mother listened without interrupting, which was unusual. When Sarah finished, there was a long silence on the line. Then her mother said quietly, "Give Bruno a treat from me." A 90-pound German Shepherd that everyone said had no place in a house with a baby. He was in that nursery at 3:41 in the morning because 3 years ago, a quiet young woman walked into a rescue on a Saturday morning and gave him a home. And Bruno, in the way that only certain dogs understand, had been paying that back every single day ever since. Not because he was trained to, not because he was told to, because he had decided somewhere in that first quiet moment with Lily that she was his to protect. If you are thinking about bringing a dog into your life, do not let other people's fear become your decision. Watch the animal, learn who it is, give it the time and the chance to show you what it is truly capable of. Because sometimes the ones everyone told you to give away become the ones who keep your family safe in the dark. Would you have kept Bruno, or would you have listened to everyone else? Tell me in the comments.